So if you're ancient like me, you probably remember back when Pokemon was on the Game Boy, and they had these weird 8-bit digitized cries that they made every time that they would enter a battle. So I came up with this method on accident. I was just messing around, and I made something that reminded me of these Generation 1 Pokemon cries. So there are probably other ways to achieve a similar result, and this method could also be useful for other things. If you're into unusual sound design or using randomly generated sounds to make glitchy or weird music, this video is for you. And I'm not a Pokemon related channel or a game design related channel or anything like that. I am a music channel. If you're into that kind of thing, please check out my other content, and let's get into this method. We're using only free VSTs today. There's links down in the description, so anybody who watches this can achieve a similar result. The concepts apply regardless of which DAW you are using. The star of this entire show is called the Sun Raw, and they call it an ambient texture generator. So this will just sit here and just keep making random noises based off of the oscillator settings. We're just going to leave it at the factory settings. We're not going to touch anything. That is what it sounds like when we unmute it. We don't even have to give it a note on command. It will just sit here and keep making cool noises. So the next thing I want to do is to add a bit crusher to give it a little bit more of that Game Boy kind of flavor, and just add a nice bit of sample reduction and bit depth reduction. We're using the dblue crusher here. It doesn't really have a GUI, but it does have a list of parameters that you can change, and you could probably get something similar to this with other bit crushers too. Then after that, I just added in a compressor just to tighten up the dynamics a little bit. I'm using the D2 compressor from Mancha. So that's the majority of the setup. Now we want to just turn this into a sample that we can load as a WAV file. So we're just going to record the output until we find some clips where there's some interesting things going on, and then load those to be used by our sampler. So I tried to record a few examples just so we have some good source material to use for the sake of this demonstration. The name of the game here is to just keep trying until you find something that sounds interesting. So real quick, we'll just load these into memory, that way they can be used by our sampler. And we're also going to add in a reverb just to make things sound a little bit nicer. Any reverb plugin will work. I like this one because it has a little bit of early reflections. That makes it sound nicer. This is the OrilRiver. And again, links to these VSTs in the description. These are all free. So now we just have to focus on our sampler here. Depending on what DAW you're using, you might have a different way to trigger these wave samples. So all we're doing is just triggering the sample at a higher and higher octave until we find something that we like the sound of. Here is the original bass octave. It would be a C4, middle C. So that's what it sounds like originally. Here's one octave up. It's 2 octaves up. That's getting a lot closer, but I've found that the octave 7 is really the sweet spot for this. I think that sounds fairly close to how the Pokemon on the original Game Boy sounded. Close enough to spur me to make this video, for sure. That one also sounded pretty good to me. So like I was saying, even if you don't care about Pokemon, even if you're never going to use these for any sort of a game design kind of thing, at least consider the fact that this could be a somewhat usable sound for a lot of situations in a lot of different productions. I personally kind of like the octave 5 and the octave 6 kind of range. Could be a very nice, like, spooky background kind of texture. Or you could even pitch it much further down and do a few octaves lower. And if this didn't quite work out for you, if you didn't get a good sounding end result, then just repeat the recording process until you can find a sample that sounds how you want it to when you increase the pitch. So that will conclude the lesson for today. I would like to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporter, John Johnson. That's right, there's only one Patreon supporter for my channel so far, so I would greatly appreciate it if some more of you would consider signing up and helping to make my musical ventures that much more financially viable. Each and every single one of you, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have fun out there.